Hi everyone, welcome back to another First Chapter Thursday. It's Mr. Kevin, and this week we're going to be looking at some books that take place in the real world but have all sorts of crazy magical happenings going on. So, the book I chose to read is The Revenge of Magic by James Riley, and it is published by Aladdin Books. So, we're going to jump right into Chapter 1. Just minutes before the attack in Washington, D.C., Fort's father was embarrassing him at the Lincoln Memorial. President Fort Slight Fitzgerald, his dad said, pointing at the spot each word would go above the giant seated statue of Abraham Lincoln. I feel like we're going to need a larger statue, though. These ceilings are high enough to fit that head of yours, but you're definitely going to need a bigger chair. Fort rolled his eyes, but a grin popped out anyway. I'm pretty sure they don't let 12-year-olds run for president, he said. I think I have to be an adult, and that's when you said I was going to be leading a mission to Jupiter and curing cancer, I think. That vision of me in your head really needs to make up its mind. You'll do all of that and more, his father shouted. Other visitors to the Lincoln Memorial began to look at them, making Fort blush. There's no time to be lazy, not with all the amazing things you're going to accomplish. And don't forget, I still want a flying car, so I'll need you to invent that too. Fort tried to pull his father to a less crowded area, but his dad wouldn't move. I will if you talk less loudly, he murmured, as two girls slightly older than Fort stared at them, whispering, fantastic. I'm pretty sure as an adult I can talk as loudly as I want, his father said. But stop pushing us off topic, Fort. This is your future we're talking about. You're going to be a great man someday, and I, for one, can't wait to take pictures in front of your statue as children gaze up at it adoringly. He waved at the two girls. See, we've already got 2 volunteers. The girls both broke into wide smiles, and Fort felt his face burn with the heat of a volcano. I'm sorry about this, he told them. He thinks it's funny to embarrass me wherever he can. It's not funny, one of the girls said. Intelligent youths around here, his father shouted in response. Listen to them, Fort. I hear that children are our future. I'm your future, Fort hissed at him, because once you're old, I get to decide which nursing home to put you in. Low blow, young man, his father said, then pointed at Lincoln. Do you think our beloved 16th president would have spoken to his father that way? And he's your personal hero. He leaned closer to the girls conspiratorially. When my boy here was in diapers, he'd stroll around in a top hat and make us call him Fort Lincoln. One of the girls snorted, while the other turned away to hide her laughter. Fort wondered how easy it'd be to spontaneously combust. He's making that up, he told the girls, his face getting even hotter, and we really need to get going. Oh, we have plenty of time, his father said, taking out his phone. Besides, I think I have pictures of that in here. Girls, you want to see? I'm just getting really tired, Fort said, yanking his father by the arm toward the steps of the memorial. Maybe we should head back to the hotel. Nonsense, his father shouted. Why, we haven't seen Einstein yet. Did you know there is a statue of Einstein right off the National Mall, Fort? And the Gettysburg Address? He pointed at the speech, carved into the wall of the Lincoln Memorial to the left of the president. Look at this. 272 words, short and to the point. A slight tremble shook the memorial, like a heavy truck was driving by. Fort looked around nervously, but the tremor only lasted a few seconds and no one else really seemed bothered by it. I think President Lincoln is waking up, his father whispered to him with a grin. Did you know that a second man gave a 2-hour speech before Lincoln at Gettysburg? He handed Fort a brochure with the Gettysburg Address written out in multiple languages. I don't see that speech carved in marble, do you? If that's not proof that shorter is better, I don't. A second tremor hit. This one more violent. Several people shouted in surprise around the memorial, and Fort almost lost his balance, barely avoiding dropping to his knees on the marble. He looked at his father in alarm. Was this an earthquake? What was happening? His father reached over to steady Fort as the trembling stopped again. Ladies, maybe you should go find your parents, he said to the girls they'd been talking to, then turned to Fort. Are you okay, kiddo? Totally fine, Fort said, pretending his heart wasn't racing. It was nothing. That's the spirit, his father said, although he looked a bit shaken too. But maybe we should head back to the hotel and grab some dinner. Einstein can wait. After all, time is his relative, I think, probably a cousin. Fort couldn't even bring himself to roll his eyes. Instead, he shoved the Gettysburg Address brochure into his pocket and started to make his way through the now unsettled crowd toward the stairs. As he reached the top of the steps, something strange caught his eye in the distance. The Lincoln Memorial was surrounded by a circle of roadways, with the reflecting pool stretching out from the memorial to the Washington Monument almost a mile away. But even from that distance, Ford could see lines of people quickly leaving the monument in every direction. That wasn't a great sign, but the strangest thing about it was that as far as Ford could tell from the distance, all the tourists were running from the monument in a single file line, each person moving at the exact same speed. Dad, did you see that? Ford asked, turning around just as a third tremor struck, this time much worse than the last two. The stone of the memorial leaped straight up, throwing Ford a foot in the air. He landed as hard as stone cracked beneath him in a jagged lightning shape all the way down the steps. Out! Ford's father shouted, pushing the girls toward the exit before grabbing Ford's hand and yanking him downstairs. They made it down to the street circling the memorial, with horrifying noises coming from it. The shaking grew more intense, and now people by the reflecting pool were running off, again in single file, one behind the other, not even looking as they crossed the street. Fortunately, all the cars had stopped, and all the passengers had exited their vehicles, merging smoothly into the line of fleeing tourists. As odd as all that was, even stranger that was that no one was screaming in fear, yelling for a friend, or even saying a word. Instead, they were all deathly quiet, moving in unison, like some sort of flash mob that they'd been choreographing for months. The sheer silence of those fleeing sent a chill down Ford's spine. A horrible new crackling noise erupted as a reflecting pool, like a rock, scraping against rock. And Ford's father shouted something, but the grinding stone overpowered his words. Ford turned to find people near him pointing at the Washington Monument, and they were all screaming. That felt at least more normal to Ford than the eerie silence closer to the monument and reflecting pool. Look out! Someone yelled as a car came speeding around the circle right towards a large group of tourists. One of the two girls from above had just entered the path of the car, but the other yanked her out as the car roared past. Off the road, his father shouted, and pushed both Ford and the girls onto the lawn as to the side of the crumbling Lincoln Memorial. We have to get out of here! My mom's still in there, one of the girls shouted. I need to go find her. I'm coming, the other girl started to say, then abruptly stopped, turned, and ran off toward the side streets. Megan? The first girl called after her. Where are you going? Ford's father looked back up into the Lincoln Memorial, then down at Ford. Wait here, he said. Don't move until I get back. I'm going to go find their mother. His father took the cracked steps, 2 by 2, pushing up against the crowd like he was swimming up a waterfall. Ford waited a moment, then ran after him, followed by the remaining girl. Look, someone shouted from behind him. It can't be real, someone else said, filming with his phone. Ford threw a look over his shoulder for a moment, then froze in place halfway up the steps. Next to the Washington Monument, something was pushing up out of the ground. Something that looked like claws. Claws that were 10 feet tall. So, you want to see what happens in the rest of this book and the crazy magical attacks that are going on, and see how Ford gets wrapped up in the rest of what's going on, you're going to have to read the rest of this book. We have some copies at the library and online at Overdrive. Yeah. So, if you're looking for some other books to read this summer that take place in the real world, that have all sorts of crazy magical happenings, the first one to try is Aru Shah and the End of Time by Roshani Chakshi. This is a cool series that follows Aru Shah, and she is stuck at home. She's supposedly going off to these big trips to Paris or being royalty. At least that's what she's telling all of her classmates. And in reality, she's just hanging out and working at the Museum of Ancient Indian Art. And when a couple of her classmates show up to catch her in these fibs, she tells them about this cursed lamp at the museum. And when they all dare her to light it, well, it turns out the lamp is actually cursed. And it freezes time, and she's got to deal with this crazy demon that is going to wake up the god of destruction and just destroy everything. And it's up to Aru, all on her own, to find the 5 brothers from Indian legend, the Pandava brothers, from the Mahabharata, and save the day. Our next book is Dragons in a Bag by Zetta Elliott, and Jackson is this kid, and he's supposed to spend the day with this woman that his mom has always called Mom. But it turns out that she's not actually his grandmother, she's a witch. And she needs Jackson's help to deliver some baby dragons to a magical land where they're supposed to go and grow up. He just has to follow 2 rules. Don't let the dragons out of the bag, and don't feed them sugar. which Jackson and his friends kind of break those rules pretty quickly. And now they have to get these dragons back, they have to get them into this magical world so they're safe and so they're not just trapped in Brooklyn, because Brooklyn's not a good place for dragons to be growing up. And then finally, our last book is Estranged by Ethan M. Eldridge. And this is a graphic novel, and the art is really, really cool. And it follows Edmund, who was fairy royalty. But when he was a baby, he gets swapped out with a human kid up in the regular world instead of down in the fairy world. And the fairies just call this other kid the child. He doesn't even have a name. Well, Edmund lives with the humans, and he has no idea that he's actually royalty. And then the child is just down in fairyland, and he's working as a knight and a protector. And then the sorceress Hawthorne takes over fairy world, and Edmund gets caught up in it. He has no idea what's going on. The child is going up to the human world trying to get Edmund to bring him back down, and there is just all sorts of magical happenings and craziness. So they have to figure out who's who and who's going to do what, and one of them is going to be in the real world, which one of them is going to be in the fairy world from now on. So those are my 3 other recommendations for this week, and there's also all sorts of nonfiction books that have all crazy magical mythical monsters, books about critters from all over the world, and those are all over in nonfiction, and feel free to put those on hold and we'll bring them out to you. And then don't forget, we're coming up to the last few weeks of summer reading. There is lots of room for more readers to still join up, and there's lots of prizes still to win. And even if you sign up now and just do a couple of activities, well, there's still a lot of good prizes for you to try and win. So that was First Chapter Thursday for this week, and I'll see you all again in 2 weeks. See you soon. Bye.